And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Dave Petzo joining us as he does every Monday at this time. Dave, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
So we take a look at the latest. It's not looking good for interest rates.
No.
They've creeped up again and again and again. What does that mean for the average Idahoan?
Well, right so far it means nothing. Although the pace is clearly picking up. We're going to see a rate increase. I feel pretty certain we're going to see it in March. All the numbers indicate it. And I think the bottom line, Kevin, is to remember the reason interest rates are rising is because the economy is doing so much better. So, yes, borrowing costs will be going higher, but so far they're not high enough to really be impacting people. Home sales are still great. The economy is obviously doing well, and it's not an inflationary increase. That's the key. So when you hear people out there yammering about how higher interest rates kill stocks, it's simply not true. It's only when interest rates are high and going higher that hurt stocks.
Right, but eventually that's going to impact home sales and credit cards and car sales and everything else. Let's go to specifically car sales, if you will.
Yep.
Because that has been on fire the last 3 or 4 years. Will this, impact car sales?
I don't think it'll impact them too much. Again, we are seeing car sales slow down, but as you point out, it's because it's coming from a very, very high level. They have been on fire, and the economy has been doing so well, but people have caught up to the pent-up demand on cars, and so we're seeing them down just a little bit, but I don't see it waning completely. What's going on in the car business now, of course, the biggest concern they have is when autonomous vehicles are taking over, and are they in a position to have those kind of vehicles? That's what you're seeing with General Motors and Ford. They're all just scrambling to catch up with Tesla and others.
Indeed, of course, I think that's going to be a while.
Sooner than later, I think. It's really, what are they predicting now? Early 2020s?
Sure, but those are early adopters.
Yeah.
When you take a look at, how many people, and much to the chagrin of the people that are buying or, selling cars, you have people that, if they're smart, they'll keep their cars for, 10 or even longer. What's the longest you've kept a car?
Well, the one I have now is 10.
Right.
Yeah. I have had one. Actually, my daughter drives one, and it's a 1984.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Are you
no,
sure?
Late 80s. It was my car. She took it over.
Right.
Still has it today.
And you still have a lot of people that, how do they survive without a backup camera? Or without the blind spots going beep, 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 beep? Going back to an old Petzoism, we've made luxuries necessities.
These
days. So you could have the autonomous cars, but one thing that scares me, and we've talked about this for quite some time, is this issue involving what happens when the car buffers. These computers at work or something like that.
Yeah, like a Netflix movie is what
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
Insert your least favorite internet provider. We won't name any here,
but it does happen, right?
Right. I had a friend of mine at the height of his wealth, probably worth $500 million. Maybe he's a billionaire today. You never know it. He talked about satellite radio. Mm-hmm. And he would say, he'd go, Kevin, satellite radio ain't going to happen. And there's a very niche argument for that. But he goes, when they get this wireless thing, and we didn't even have a name for wireless. This was like the late 2000 or the late 19th century, 1900s, early 2000s. And he said, when you have this Wi-Fi, mm-hmm. that's going to be the audio revolution because it's going to put everybody on an equal footing. And he's right to a degree. People podcast and such. But really, and again, it's a dying breed, but there's nothing more, important to a community than a local radio station that does local stuff. It hasn't been replaced. It's just giving you an alternative. Like Netflix hasn't replaced Channel 7.
That's right.
It's an alternative if you don't want to watch the Winter Olympics.
That's right.
And who doesn't want to watch the Winter Olympics now that they're over?
Yeah, big fan. They're over.
Right. We're just getting more choices. So getting back to the autonomous vehicles, we could see that. But again, we're going to have a lot of people driving older cars, I would assume.
Absolutely. And some newer ones, right? People aren't ready for that kind of a switch over. And there will be many areas where that's not available.
Well, you have autonomous cars, and then you have electric cars.
Yep.
And you have Europe slowly going to just all electric.
Yeah, they are. And trucks now. That's going to be the big thing, I think, when we get autonomous trucks barreling down the road. You won't have drivers going to sleep. You won't have any of that.
If you watch Logan Wolverine movie, they've got autonomous trucks, and they're not too. They don't. They hit a lot of people.
Are they not nice trucks?
Right. They're because they can't differentiate, so they end up they can't stop. So get your liability insurance ready, little buddy.
Okay.
For some reason, I always think of liability. I don't know why. Not that I have any assets, but for some strange reason,
it worries
liability. Maybe my years early on in management. I don't know. Our great friend Dave Petzo with us, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Your boy Warren Buffett saying on CNBC, I'd choose equities over bonds. He also says that really the big gains they had weren't really a cause of anything. And in his letter to shareholders, they can, assume a billions of dollars loss, this Berkshire Hathaway. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think that you have to always say stocks over bonds, always. It's not even a close race, Kevin. It's not one of those things you should be trying to time or anything, but I don't know when we have interest rates as low as they've been and as low as they still are, why you would have to, let's say, use a classic model of 60% stocks and 40% bonds, like many people do heading into retirement. I just think that that's a broken asset allocation model when rates are this low. And that's not a prediction of them going higher. It's simply saying they're too low to have that work. But what I think it's really done is it's focused everybody to say, yeah, equities are. They bounce around a little bit, but that's it. They just keep going to all-time highs over time, and they serve people better. And, in fact, are a much better income story than bonds are over time. Now, not necessarily today, then the bond will typically pay more, but dividends have increased over the years very quickly and catch up to what bonds do.
Well, no, I've been looking at this, and again, some of the folks that I've been yapping to, and like you, Dave, I watched CNBC. I'll listen to the radio. Again, it's not my profession like it is yours. That's why we have you on for guidance, but people continue to worry about this debt, the deficit that keeps skyrocketing, and I know the president has said, look, the GDP is at an all-time high. We expect it to continue on, but the whole deficit financing thing, could we ever, what is it now, the total $22 trillion or something like that?
Yeah, 20, it's 20, over 20 though.
So, if the United States were a company, would you buy?
No, you would not. No, it's not. That's not good, and especially when you consider how difficult the solutions are. What we're talking about is we have to attack entitlement programs, period. There isn't anything else. I mean, you can almost feel people going, well, you can't do this, can't do that. I get it. But if we're going to solve this problem, you have to attack the very things that are the third rail in politics, right? You can't touch Social Security, et cetera.
But we just raised entitlement programs with the new budget.
To a degree, we did.
No,
yeah.
I mean, we did. The Democrats said, Trump, if you want the military increases, we're going to raise entitlements. That's going to be tricky, I think, until you get the millennials that are maybe 40 or in their 40s and 50s, gosh forbid.
Yeah.
Because you have this huge segment, the baby boomers, that are, they paid into the system.
Yep. Don't touch mine.
Right. Now, being a Generation Xer, my generation's small, so both of them should be able to afford me.
Right.
That's because it's all politics.
Because there's not very many of you, huh?
Right. All politics are local and my own self-interest and of my ilk.
Yes.
But getting back to this, you say talk about or share with us as far as entitlement programs, but what about, let's say, what if we put a tax on consumables, okay? Mm-hmm. A penny, a dime on something that everybody uses.
Right.
Just to start whittling away. Is it like massive credit card debt that the interest is so big that we can never pay off the principal?
To a degree. Here's the other problem. When have we ever had, quotes, a temporary tax? There's no such thing, right? When have we ever said that sales tax would be only 3%, right? And then it becomes 5%, in some states it becomes 10%. It just keeps going higher and higher and higher. I think you let the camel in the tent, it's done. And then they'll start rating that kitty just like they will every other one. Well, right now we need some temporary hurricane relief, or is this storm relief over here, or if we don't get our roads and bridges up and going, we can't do commerce here. they will steal the money. They always do. So again, Kevin, I back up and say it's not the problem of money. It's a problem of the size of government. And so we've got to slow down. I mean, if you want to solve this problem, it's simple, easy. Continue to get government out of the way. We saw what happened with simply saying, you know what, the road conditions are going to get better in the United States. They're not going to keep getting worse every day. That's what happened when Trump got elected. And upon that, instantly, you saw the GDP begin to pick up. Why? Because the animal spirits that you and I have talked about were unleashed. Just stay out of the way. The economy will continue to grow well. Therefore, tax revenues will go higher. And all we have to do is slow down the growth. We don't even have to cut programs, Kevin. Just slow down the growth of entitlements, and we get there. We absolutely get there, but we have to do it. And if we don't start doing it now, we're 10 years away from it beginning to take up all of the budget. And that's when we've got no other things to do. And then we can talk about raising taxes on other things that will not solve the problem because, again, they'll just spend it.
Dave Petzo joining us here as we continue on. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's tackle a topic that we've been talking about for a couple weeks now. Guns. You have United, you have Delta saying, we're not going to give any more discounts to the NRA. The NRA is very adept at handling these boycotts and such. What do you make of these major airliners and retailers going after the NRA? Does that really impact them at all? Perhaps that helps them?
Yeah, it might. I don't know. I don't think people join organizations because they get discounts, and I think that that's a political statement that is offensive to me. As a consumer, I don't think companies should ever boycott or make statements like that. That just says this is the politics at the top of this particular company, and we want all people to comply with our progressive politics. You just don't hear that from the right, where they just come out and say, hey, I think you need to boycott this or that. It's just something most people on the right feel like it's a liberty, it's a freedom of people to choose who they do business with. And people on the left have been boycotting Chick-fil-A and things like that for various reasons over the years, and they find that people are out the door. So I think that's offensive when companies come out and make some kind of statement. They're only doing it because they think that that's the right side of politics right now, and it probably is. But they don't need to make that statement. Just go about flying airplanes safely and keep our tickets at a reasonable price.
This seems like pandering.
It is pandering. Totally is, Kevin, and that's one of the reasons I find it offensive. They're pandering to what the noise is today without any real thought about what the underlying problems are, and will it really solve anything if we got rid of the NRA? Really? Yeah, getting rid of the NRA will suddenly bring all those children back. It will not have any mental illness. The FBI won't have blown it completely with multiple phone calls. Forget it. I'm busy today. I got stuff to do. I'm going to go have a donut. I mean, all that nonsense, and I'm not picking on the FBI. I'm just saying all of this, we're contributors to this problem, not the NRA.
More with Dave Petzo next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. All right, we continue on with our great friend Dave Petzo. So we've been hearing ads for the governor's race, and hard to believe that it's going to be over in the middle of May. We've got the congressman, we've got the lieutenant governor, and then we have the physician. By the way, Steve Pankey is running again. I believe he ran the last time. This time he's running as a Republican. I had a chance to run into Steve. He'll be joining us sometime this week, as will Dr. Ahlquist. So as a person within the business community, how do you see this? I know you have a close relationship with the governor. Your thoughts on the three Republicans. We can talk a little bit about Paulette Jordan and A.J. Belukoff if you'd like as well. But business-wise, economically-wise, whoever gets the title, they're going to be inheriting a pretty good deal.
They are. And, business is good here. Things are good. Tax revenues are up. You're right. And basically everything's running well. Now, obviously, Brad Little's got, if you will, he's a very well-liked person. And so he's got the inside track. There's no question. But it feels a little bit, if you will, just looking from the outside in. And I think he's a very nice man, Kevin. I mean, there's no doubt. I've never met anybody that doesn't like him.
Doesn't like who?
Brad Little.
Right.
He's just a nice guy. He's a super nice guy. And so
there's a humility about him.
There really is. Yeah. There truly is. He has a real presence about him. I agree with you. And so I think he'd be a great governor.
For you or me, but I can say that for Brad Little.
That's right. Exactly. Yes, we can. And so I think he would be a great governor, but I also feel like that doesn't seem to have that spark. So I think we want to hear more from him as to why he wants to be governor, not because he was lieutenant governor type of an approach. Nice guy. Alquist, I don't know. He's an unknown. I like the business background, but I'm not sure.
You're a downtown Boise guy. He's a downtown Boise
He's a downtown Boise guy, and I'm not sure I like downtown Boise guys. I mean, let's just face it. This is
But
a
you're
very
a downtown Boise guy.
I am, but I'm also not a connected developer.
Your heart really is in the hinterlands. I can tell.
That's right.
I can tell.
I am. I just don't, when you've got all people
Just
that are
make the
connected
move, Dave.
downtown,
Just
make the
make the
move,
move.
move out to Star.
Star, Meridian.
Star, anywhere,
you know,
get out of town.
Nampa, we all we'll start privately recruiting Dave Petzo.
Yeah.
It's fascinating though because you look at the three candidates. You have the lieutenant governor that's run statewide many times.
Yeah.
Who has been in partnership with Governor Otter, and they've been through thick and thin. Many people weren't here, or if they are here, how fickle our memories are when we're talking about the Great Recession. You and I talking about home prices going down.
Yep.
Now they're going up. You've got the congressman from his time as a state representative within the community to going toe-to-toe with John Boehner, brings that national perspective. And then you have Dr. Alquist. When he wasn't building buildings, he was an emergency room physician and brings that outsider approach. So we have three unique features. And then on the Democratic side, you've got the state representative, Paulette Jordan, who resigned. And then you have A.J. Belukoff, beloved in the education community, ran last time against Governor Otter, obviously sees something going on this time, and wants another shot at the title.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how good this field is in my mind. I just think you've got two business people, one Democrat, one Republican, and you've got, like you said, some well-rounded politicians as well. So to me, I think Idaho wins regardless of what happens. But
well, it's fascinating though, and we'll hold that point more with Dave Petzo in a minute. Traffic and weather together. Okay, so back to this point, we have all these folks going on. How difficult is it, do you believe, to manage growth when we have the state growing? I wouldn't be surprised by the year 2020 if we're over 2 million people.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. Well, 2 million is probably a stretch, but
look, that's what we do.
Early
here on the radio.
2020, we stretch.
We stretch the 2020 census. I'm going on record right now. 2 million people in the state of Idaho, based on. I see a lot of people on the roads. That's my scientific. That's my research.
I like it. Your heavy duty research.
Right. So managing that growth. If now there's still time for you to jump in.
Right. Well, I wouldn't hold your breath.
Okay. Fair enough.
Got some good people. That's good. That's great.
We could rename the primary the Petzo primary.
Oh, really? Would we?
The Petzo primary with Petcoin and everything else. Yeah. So back to this, managing growth, selling that message. Is it like running for office? Is it like, let's say, selling investors, selling shareholders on a vision, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is, and I don't think politicians do that. I think that people, the great politicians, people like Reagan, people like Trump, frankly, he sold people on a vision. It wasn't because of his politics. He wasn't afraid to say, this is what I believe in and what I'm going to go after, and Mexico's going to pay for it. And people are like, you know what? I like the way this guy talks. When people don't have a vision and are afraid to say things, I think that's a problem. In my mind, I want a politician to step forward. We were talking about earlier, Labrador coming out. Kevin, you and I have talked about this before.
Sure.
But coming out with a tax plan saying this is what I think. Now everybody else has to do the Me Too thing. I think people that come out and say this is what I plan, I'm a conservative or I'm not, I believe in this, I believe in that. But when you just pander to your own base, I just that's to me is no vision at all. It just says I don't want to make a mistake and I want to get elected. Hillary didn't get elected because she didn't want to make a mistake. To me, it's like prevent football. One more analogy. Prevent football, you prevent the victory.
Indeed, from the non-politician.
Right.
What should we be looking out for this week, young man?
As we get out of the...
Aside from Dave Petzo.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's not much going on out there right now, Kevin. Well, people are fussing about the recent market upset. I just think things are just going to calm back down, and we go into more of what we have in the past here, which is the economy's growing. There's no reason not to own stocks, and the volatility will fade away. So I'm not looking for anything big in the market, and I'm sure I will be proven wrong.
Well, ever the optimist. By the way, Bitcoin now up to $10,000. Back from a previous low of about 7 or what have you. All-time high was $2,000. Or I'm sorry, $10,000 or $20,000. Now it's at about $10,000. Bitcoin still gets a lot of people buzzing these days.
It does.
Your thoughts on this cyber currency?
Yeah, again, Kevin, I just think it's going to be the whole blockchain technology is going to upend financial transactions as we know it over the next few years. Very few years, it'll start impacting. And but I do think that without having controls and having governments be able to track transactions, that they don't want to see illegal transactions, that nothing will happen. So I don't think there's really any future as it exists. I think there's much future with where I think blockchain will be going, which is to have some governmental controls and or involvement in it.
Dave Petzo joining us here as we continue on. Anything else we should be looking out for? I mean, this is about it.
Everybody's focused on interest rates, Kevin, and I think that's wrong. Again, interest rates that are at a very low level and being raised is a positive. It's not a negative, and I think it's important to bear that in mind. And I don't care what the people on TV say. They're wrong. They're looking at the wrong data. They're just making a broad statement that interest rates rising are bad for stocks. That's true when interest rates are at 8% and on their way to 10. It's not true when they're at 0 and on their way to 2. And that's what we've done. The Federal Reserve now is at 1.5%, and they'll raise again in March. And this is all good because the economy is good.
And next time we'll talk Tesla.
Tesla.
Your favorite
topic. My favorite Barnum and Bailey company.
All right. You won't be buying a Tesla. You won't be we see them on the roads here.
They are. You see them all over the place. They're an amazing car.
You're a happening person if you have a Tesla.
You're
happening. You're hip. You're
you
with
are.
the times.
I know. No, you get the chicks that way. Get a Tesla, get the chicks. I know. You just love it when I put my foot in my mouth and kill myself here.
Dave Petzo, catch him every Saturday, 8 to 10 on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And so happy that you can join us here. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO, talking more about, the number one topic at KIDO Talk Radio, the issue involving whether or not you would support armed guards at local schools in Idaho, number one. And we'll talk a little bit more about armed teachers. The president, on one hand, is meeting with the nation's governors today to take a look at, what he can do about this and what they can do about it. Here's our own Rachel Sutherland on KIDO Talk Radio.
President Trump will meet with the nation's governors today to talk about school safety. Topping the agenda, the Parkland shooting.
We're going to have some very important meetings. We'll be talking about Parkland and the horrible event that took place last week.
The president speaking at the governor's ball at the White House last night. President Trump has proposed raising the minimum age to buy assault-style weapons and arming some teachers. The governors are in Washington for their annual winter meeting. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
And Kevin Miller in the morning here as we continue on. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And it seems like, the nation is blaming the NRA. Everybody's going after the NRA, saying it's the NRA's fault, but it wasn't the NRA that was there. And, of course, what do you have? 5 million people that are members of the NRA. 5 million people that are there that are members of the NRA, that are innocent and that are law-abiding. And yet you have United and others that are saying we're going to take down the NRA, no more discounts for NRA members. Now, as we just sit here and hang out at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, is that really going to stop the school shootings? Now, our friend Sean Hannity, along with the president and others, have been going back and forth on this with solutions, hardening schools, arming teachers. But it comes down to this, the idea about, whether or not you would be in favor of having armed guards, like with weapons, and not just weapons, but weapons that are not concealed. Something to think about when you're traveling in today. And how do you truly feel about school safety when it comes to your children? Here in the state of Idaho, of course, there are many people that have thoughts, and we'll take your calls on that in a minute.
We're talking about banning firearms, and the discussion is about banning all semi-automatic firearms, and that's really the discussion. Can we actually look at what could have prevented this? That firearm did not walk itself into the school. An individual who was allowed to go unchecked by the Broward County Sheriff's Office allowed that firearm to go in the school. This is not the fault, nor are 5 million innocent law-abiding Americans culpable for this.
Right, and the idea we're going to vilify people that are members of the NRA is quite preposterous. On the other side of the political spectrum,
I can tell you that the experts think that the president's solution would make things more dangerous, not less.
That would be Chuck Schumer, not in favor of arming teachers. Let's go to the phones. Liberty Linda joins us now with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberty Linda.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. You know, I used to go to the open carry meetings here in the Treasure Valley, and the people I met there were some of the greatest people on this earth. They were just the salt of the earth. And anyway, I chatted with many of them, and they only carried for protection. And they were just, you know, they were like ranchers and cowboys, and anyway, it just really impressed me as some of the greatest people we have on this earth. And in regard to the schools, I think that the teachers absolutely should have an option to carry if they would like to. And I don't think the children should know which teacher is carrying. I think that should be kept confidential.
Well, and look, this is going to be a test case here in the state of Idaho because you have people saying, well, schools shouldn't auction off guns, or we should enhance gun-free zones, and we should do all these things. But we already have laws on the books that don't stop the criminals.
Well, the gun-free zones is the most and first thing I believe that that we shouldn't have anymore in this country. You know, like our president says, you know, it's an invitation for trouble is what it is. When you have that sign somewhere, it's just an invitation. And so I don't believe in gun-free zones. That's first and foremost.
Let's
pardon me?
let's delve. Sorry to interrupt, Liberty. Let's delve a little further. What would you say to people that don't understand why you should have the right to carry for self-defense? Because there are many people that sit back and go, well, you can hunt and you can fish. And no, self-defense. And then they kind of look at you kind of strange. What would you say to them that they believe that you shouldn't have the right to defend yourself, concealed carry? What would you say?
Well, and I've met people like that, too, that believe that. To me, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me, you know. I mean, we should have the right to protect ourselves, you know, and that is a right that we have here in the United States. We're a different country than other countries around the whole world, but it should be a right to protect ourselves and our families. I think that's the most important thing that we have here. And so I guess that's basically what I'd say to them. I mean, everyone has a right to what they believe.
Well, but then we have people saying, we need common sense gun reform. Well, if guns were really that big of a problem, we would have this stuff happening more frequently than it does. And gosh, we don't need to have it happen at all.
And we didn't used to have it happen.
Right. Well,
I know when I was growing up, you know, that is, it's a different world we live in. You know, whether it's video games that perhaps have brainwashed the children. You know, we have mommy and daddy both working now, and children being taken to schools perhaps before school starts and after. I mean, it's a different world that we live in. And the poor children, you know, some of them don't have that contact with the mother and father the way they used to. I think that's one of the problems that we're having here. So it is very difficult because everyone has the right to choose. But I think that we should really talk to those people that are against the individuals carrying. You know, that's the only way we have to protect ourselves. So I think 2 guards in every school, 1 on the grounds, 1 inside, and they could switch off periodically. And every person coming into a school should be checked out by a guard. You know, lock gates. We have to do everything to protect our children now. We're having too many of these going on in our nation, and you know, our hearts go out to those families. You know, the nation, we're still in mourning. Every time I think about it, I'm sorry, I start to cry because it's just, well, it's unbelievable for most of us. And each child's life is important and precious to us.
Liberty Linda, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. You have a wonderful day.
Oh, you made it. Thank you, dear. Bye-bye. And this is a report from our friends at the liberal CNN.
Some mostly rural communities across the country, the idea of arming teachers is welcomed, even by some students, like this freshman and junior at Callisburg High School, who asked that we not identify them.
I feel protected. I don't feel like they're going to threaten me in any way. I feel like if someone came in, that I know that they're going to handle it. So I feel very protected.
I feel really safe knowing that I can, come to school, and if there's, an incident that does happen, that they'll be able to, protect us.
Out of the roughly 1,000 school districts across the state of Texas, there are about 170 that have a policy of allowing teachers or administrators to carry a firearm on campus. Here in the small town of Callisburg, their Guardian program was implemented about 4 years ago, in large part because the city doesn't have a local police department. They rely on county sheriffs. And in a county this large, it can take many minutes for those deputies to respond to something like a shooting scene inside a school. Clugston says the school's Guardian force undergoes active shooter scenario training once a year and routine target practice at gun ranges. But critics say that isn't enough. The school officer at Stoneman Douglas, who was trained far more extensively, waited outside the building as the gunman unleashed a deadly massacre. Steve Clugston is convinced that if his Guardians face the same ordeal, they won't flinch.
We're trying to put our teachers in a position to be better equipped to protect their kids. And I have complete faith in our team that they're willing to stand up and protect our people.
The armed teachers here haven't faced the worst case scenario. So the question remains, how will they react if they're forced to face a killer?
Well, maybe the reason why they haven't faced that threat is people know they're armed, and that's a deterrent. And isn't that what it's about? Ken in Nampa, good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Ken.
Well, good morning, a beautiful snowy Idaho morning.
Exactly.
Hey, West Ada School District teachers are already told how to deal with situations like an active shooter, and if you go through the lesson training, they teach them that the kids are all supposed to throw books at somebody if they break in the door to the classroom, and throw books at them and pencils and whatever they can find. And the teachers are all told to have some type of a offensive weapon like a golf club or a baseball bat or a strong umbrella to poke them with. And if somebody comes through the door into a classroom, they're told to attack them with the umbrella or attack them with the golf club. So they're already using turning something into a weapon to defend the classroom, and it's ridiculous that we can't go one step further and put armed teachers in classrooms to truly defend somebody, to defend a classroom against somebody that would do something so ignorant as attack innocent people with a rifle. That's my 2 cents on it.
Well, your 2 cents are always welcome, Ken. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. More of your calls next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And let's go to Christian in Weiser with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Christian.
Hey, how you doing?
Not bad, and you?
Upright and breathing. Years ago, I was selling school equipment, and I went to a school in Compton in Southern California, a high school. Thought it was the wrong place. It looked like a prison. I mean, high fences, barbed wire, metal detectors. So the kids weren't getting the guns in the school. But guess how many stabbings they have?
Quite a bit.
So, okay, it doesn't matter if they take away all the guns. If they just took all our guns right now, these sort of incidents are going to continue to happen. Having someone in the school that's armed is a damn good idea. I mean, it's just, they need to just stop, take a breath, go, all right, there's no way to stop this unless we stop the person in the act. because the next shooter is already out there thinking about it, and the one after that, they'll probably already have a gun. So trying to crack down on gun control, it works so good in Chicago, and it's just, they need to just do it. Just do it. The only way to stop it is to stop them in the act. You know, it's going to happen again. So, hey, let's get someone in place that's ready for when it does. Right?
I'm with you, Christian. Thank you for the call. Traffic and weather together. And Kevin Miller in the morning here. Coming up, we'll talk to our great friend Lars Larson. And we take a look at some of the school districts here in the state of Idaho that arm teachers. One of them that's getting some news again, Garden Valley. Now, it's funny. Everybody's jumping to the bandwagon. Oh, Garden Valley does this. Well, we covered that back when they began that program in 2015. And we've got, again, an opinion poll right now at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Would you support your school arming teachers? Now, remember, you have a lot of folks that are, how should we put this, that are not down with the guns, that, think of guns as evil, and they take a look at, that we should sit back and disarm us. I disagree with that. And I think the idea that we have these gun-free zones are not helping. And the vilification of the NRA is just something that gets me, because you have the NRA, which is about safety and arming us and protecting ourselves. And it wasn't the NRA that stormed that nightclub in Orlando. It wasn't the NRA that killed those people in Las Vegas. It wasn't the NRA that went into that school in Parkland, Florida, right? Think about that.
Any American school that needs immediate professional consultation and help with organizing and defining these solutions should call the National Rifle Association School Shield Program. And we will provide immediate assistance, and we will also provide it absolutely free to any school in America.
There's Wayne LaPierre at CPAC talking about how to keep kids safe.
Their laws haven't stopped the plague of opioids and Chinese fentanyl from Mexico that floods American streets and kills victims every single day in this country. No wonder law-abiding Americans all over this country revere their Second Amendment freedom to protect themselves more than ever. But once again, so many existing laws were ignored. Their laws don't stop illegal criminals from crossing our borders every single day. Their laws don't stop the scourge of gang violence and drug crime that savages Baltimore, Chicago, and every major American community.
And there we have it from Wayne LaPierre, the head of the NRA at CPAC. We'll have much more on that coming up at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Again, we're getting back to the two Americas, the rich, the poor, the conservative, the liberal. And it really comes down to, what you believe. Do you trust laws to keep you safe? Do you believe that banning the bump stock is going to stop the criminals, the deranged? If we expect the police state to keep us safe, well, where were they in Florida? Where were they in Las Vegas? So what happens when the laws are ignored, when the criminals are free, when they're firing on us? It really goes back to that debate that we had, that concealed carry debate that we had at Boise State, where it took them minutes to get there, and you had people naively believing that the police would be there within 10 to 15 seconds if, gosh forbid, there's some type of armed attack. I wish the police could get there all the time. I'm sure the police wish they could get there all the time. Are you confident enough in yourself to say it's my responsibility to protect myself and my family? That's next.